It's working.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So our one agenda item today is review the new New York City Department of Transportation rules for outdoor dining. The rule set, the proposed rule set was sent across to this committee for review. How should we do this? Josephine, will
Jack,
you be?
I prepared a quick PowerPoint with some slides, and then we could take committee questions. Leroy Branch is here from the New York City Department of Transportation Commissioner's Office, and he is here to take feedback back. Although we could also do a formal recommendation. I'm not sure if he can answer all our questions. He may be able to answer some simple procedural questions if we have any here tonight. But I'm going to just go through quickly the PowerPoint slides of the rule change, and I'll just quickly share with board members who may not be familiar. But when the outdoor dining bill was introduced by the City Council and adopted, the agency then has to formulate rules governing the program's details about hours of operation, applications, etc. And that is a very public, open process. And during any rule change, the community board has an opportunity to weigh in, attend the hearing, or submit comments. And it's within a 30-day time period. So community board or anyone from the public can comment to the Department of Transportation about the rules that they have been proposed. And that deadline is November 20th, which means that we will have to submit those comments to the Department of Transportation. We could send those over via email to the department. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Everyone see that?
Yes.
So dining out, New York City, DOT's permanent outdoor dining proposal. The permanent outdoor dining program will expand year-round sidewalk dining to all boroughs. It will also allow roadway dining for 8 months a year. It will provide restaurants with clear design requirements. And it will be managed by the New York City Department of Transportation. Currently, just to share with board members, the sidewalk cafes before the pandemic were the application process was submitted to the Department of Consumer Affairs. So now this has changed with the new rules that are proposed. The agency in charge will be the Department of Transportation. And again, it says here, DOT will hold a public hearing on the proposed rule online on November 20th at 10 a.m. So roadway versus sidewalk cafe. The Department of Transportation has defined roadway cafe to mean an open air portion of a ground floor restaurant containing readily removable tables, chairs, and other removable decorative items, which is located at the curb, lane, or parking lane of a roadway fronting the restaurant. There's an example in the photo below. To the right, it shows an example of a sidewalk cafe. The term sidewalk cafe means an open air portion of a ground floor restaurant containing only readily removable chairs and other decorative items that's located on a public sidewalk or sidewalk widening in front of the restaurant. So they listed a requirement for a license and revocable consent. It's on the screen. It simply says any person owning, leasing, or operating a ground floor restaurant which abuts any street may establish and operate a sidewalk cafe upon the sidewalk or sidewalk widening of such a street in an area immediately adjacent to its premises, or a roadway cafe upon the roadway adjacent to the curb in front of such ground floor restaurant. And then it just says that you could be granted a license by the commissioner, provided further that a sidewalk cafe located entirely on a sidewalk widening shall be granted a license and consent for the use of such sidewalk cafe by the commissioner. So I'm not gonna read all of this, but there's gonna be a petition form. The applicant is gonna have to submit a site plan and drawings with photographs. There's gonna have to be a consent from the property owner. Part of this is a pest control plan. Additional information, supporting materials, anything that's further requested by DOT, including documents or information or materials necessary to register the revocable consent agreement with the controller's office. And prior to executing the revocable consent agreement, a petitioner must submit proof of insurance and a security fee. So when two or more ground floor restaurants share the same sidewalk and roadway frontage, the ground floor restaurant that submits first a complete and accurate petition for a revocable consent shall have priority. So here's just a slide that was provided by DOT design and location requirements. So it's similar to the pre-existing sidewalk cafe. It shows that there must be a clear path. There must be, certain feet from a subway entrance, a street tree, cellar doors. They're, just showing on this that within the rules, a certain amount of feet from a crosswalk. I think it's a good visual that's provided here to kind of depict on what the vision is for the rules that are being presented by the department. So sidewalk cafes, again, will be allowed and permitted all year round. They must be open and not enclosed. There must be a clear sidewalk path. Barriers around the sitting area are required. Furniture and setup must be easily movable. Flooring on a sidewalk cafe will not be permitted. And there must be a certain distance away from specified city features. For example, subways, fire hydrants, and mailboxes. So the roadway cafe, as we mentioned earlier, will be allowed from April through November. The structure must be removed and stored outside of the season. The structure must be open and provide a clear line of sight. Structure and furnishings must be easily movable. The maximum length is 40 feet. The maximum width is 8 feet. Must have rat-resistant, water-filled protective barriers with a reflective strip on outward-facing sides. It must be ADA accessible, and it must comply with daylighting regulations. So there's a photo there of an example of the visioning of what the roadway cafe will look like. So, and here's a chart of the required distances from certain elements or objects in the roadway, as well as on the sidewalk. Review requirements, that's where we come in. So for the sidewalk cafes, the Department of Transportation, within 5 days of filing, will forward the petition to the borough president, the speaker of the council, and the council member of the district in which the sidewalk cafe is proposed to be located for informational purposes, and to the community board for review. So community board review shall take place no later than 40 days after receipt of such petition. The board must either notify the public of such petition, conduct a public hearing thereon, and submit written recommendations to the Department of Transportation, provided that where such recommendation is submitted later than 40 days after the receipt of such petition, such recommendation may be accepted by DOT at the sole discretion of the agency. Community boards can also waive by a written statement in response if there are, if we choose not to have a public hearing. DOT will hold a public hearing if the community board has recommended that a petition be denied or approved with substantial and/or contested modifications. Upon DOT's determination to disapprove a petition, the petitioner may submit a written statement to DOT within 10 days of their determination. The DOT will consider any timely comments. If DOT affirms its decision to disapprove the petition, that will then be a final determination. So as for roadway cafes, same notice However, DOT within 10 days, as opposed to the 5 days for the sidewalk cafe, will forward the petition by email to the borough president, the speaker of the council member of the district, in which the sidewalk cafe is proposed to be located for informational purposes and the community board for review. In this, for the roadway cafes, the community board may submit comments within 30 days of receiving a petition. And the DOT may hold a public hearing, unless it denies outright a petition that would interfere with the use of inalienable property of the city of New York, including but not limited to roadways and sidewalks for public purposes or otherwise not be in the best interest of the city. So approval, there's a little footnote at the bottom here, approval by the Landmarks Preservation Commission is also required when the petition includes work or improvements on a sidewalk that is located within a historic district, located on a landmark site, or attached to a landmark, or attached to an improvement containing an interior landmark. So here are the license application fees. So the initial license for the sidewalk cafe is $1,050 for both the sidewalk cafe and roadway cafe, and a renewal every 4 years of the same amount, $1,050. The annual fee rate. So this I was a little confused about. There are different sectors, different tiers per square foot, ranging from $6 to $31 for sidewalk cafe and $5 to $25 for the roadway cafe, and that's per square foot. But I'm not really sure what the as it shows here on the map, the sectors, and I don't really have a breakdown. There is a difference, like in the board 10 area here at the bottom, you know, between the blue and the green, but as you can see, we're mostly blue or green, which is tier 1 and tier 2 on the map. I'm not really sure of the distinction. Leroy, I don't know if you know it, but that's one question that I had.
Do not, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm gonna move along. I'm sure it has to do with geography. I can see the Manhattan are more tier 3 and 4, and the outer boroughs are 1 and 2.
Even business areas are.
Yeah. So the
Consider us a bit more of a business area than the others.
yeah, but there are distinctions even between the business
Downtown
areas.
Jamaica, downtown Flushing.
So available hours of operation. A roadway cafe shall not operate on any day from November 30th to March 31st inclusive. But the hours of operation will be Sunday, 10 a.m. to midnight, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 a.m. to midnight, and Friday and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. So the Department of Transportation has also outlined rules, I call them rules of conduct. Alcohol consumption, as we know, just as was in the sidewalk cafes, any sale of alcohol in the outdoors, either the roadway cafe or the sidewalk cafe, will only be permitted if they have a license with the New York State Liquor Authority. And that's something our Police and Public Safety Committee reviews. I'm sorry, Chris, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I did. Quick question for the roadway cafes right now. Are they year round? Is that what they?
Yeah, under the emergency program, they were year round, but
Okay,
that's going to change going forward.
Yeah, just curious. Just curious. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. So no smoking. There will be no advertising, no pictures, no banners, side curtains. Advertising was also restricted in the emergency program. So names and logos will be limited to 10% of the surface area of the surface to which they are displayed. Names and logos may be painted onto barriers or otherwise physically attached and secured to the barriers, provided that any signs attached to the barriers shall be no more than 1 inch in depth. Menus and hours of operation may not be painted or physically affixed to the barriers. 3, on coverings, umbrellas and awnings, names and logos must be physically adhered to the fabric. Any sign, picture, flag, banner, side curtain, or other device used to display a name or logo may not be illuminated, flashing, or moving. Noise, which is a subject that has been included also in the new rules, states that there shall be no loud or unnecessary noises that may emanate from a sidewalk cafe or roadway cafe. No musical instruments or sound reproduction or amplification devices shall be operated or used within a sidewalk cafe or roadway cafe. Where practicable, the DOT may refer community noise disputes to alternative dispute resolution through the Mediating Establishment and Neighbor Disputes New York City program, or a successor program, and a licensee must fully comply with the New York City Noise Code. So, temporary outdoor dining structure. Businesses must remove all current temporary outdoor dining structures by November 1st, 2024. In the meantime, structures that are not used and occupied for outdoor dining for 30 consecutive days or more must be removed. The city may send a written notice to the owner to remove an unused setup. If the owner does not remove the setup or utilize the setup for outdoor dining purposes within 14 days of the notice, the setup may be removed by the city. Temporary outdoor setups must follow the same rules for hours of operation, alcohol consumption, and noise as laid down for permanent operations. And temporary structures are not required to follow the design requirements, although they must not obstruct certain city features, and all furnishings must be secured when not in use, and all roadway barriers must be filled with material and maintained. Outdoor setups that are deemed an obstruction or danger to public welfare may be removed. Failure to adequately maintain a temporary outdoor structure will result in a $500 fine. So moving forward, businesses operating outdoor dining without a license after November 1st, 2024 will be subject to the removal of their outdoor dining areas and a $500 initial fee and subsequent $1,000 fees. Licensed businesses who fail to comply will be subject to initial fines of $200 and $500 for subsequent offenses. Operation and management violations will also be subject to the same fines. Violation of the same provision 3 times or violation of any 6 provisions within a 2-year period will result in suspension or revocation of a license. Businesses who have obtained a valid roadway cafe license will need to identify storage space to ensure that materials can be removed during the non-roadway season. The DOT is working with private sector to provide restaurants with rentable or modular outdoor dining setups and the setup and breakdown services associated with them. So that's really the end of my slides that were part of the notification that was submitted to the community board, and we tried to lay it out for everyone. And I'll turn it to you, Jack, to see. I see some questions from committee members.
Thanks, Josephine. I think I saw Chris raise his hand first. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I thank you so much for that presentation. It was really great. And I was reading, the information earlier, and I was looking at the New York City rules, and I did notice that, the one title is for the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and the other is for DOT. And so my initial thought was, from the presentation, that under the emergency measures, there really were no guidelines for the roadway structures, were there? Right? Not really.
I think they were ever changing. And I think that was part of the, complaints and concerns about the temporary program, is because, well, certainly was thrust upon us during the pandemic, and then it was evolving, and it was kind of felt like the Wild West out there, to some degree.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's good to see this, because it's it's helpful, informationally, but it's also good to see that, the Department of Transportation will have some oversight over this and really be able to guide, the commercial businesses that want to have these things so that it's consistent with the public health and, are keeping our roadways safe and clear, with the water-filled barriers and the right kind of structure to create and to break down, seasonally. It's very helpful. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate, the committee having an opportunity to really look at this and do this.
Thank you, Chris. Doris.
I have several questions. One, why is there a difference in the number of days in the permitting process? It's 40 days for a sidewalk cafe and 30 days for a roadway. Why the difference? It seems illogical.
Okay. I'm not
Leroy,
sure.
do you-
I,
Leroy,
I
do you
wrote
have-
I wrote it down, Doris.
That's okay. And then in my recollections, when we did approvals for sidewalk cafes, they were not year round. And were they? And I don't remember properly.
No, I think it was the same time period. The sidewalk cafe, no, sidewalk cafes were not year round, correct?
But now they are.
But now they are, yes.
I think that could be problematic. And then when
Well, hold on, Doris. And I'm putting on my community board hat at this point. There were some sidewalk cafes that were year round if they were enclosed.
yes, okay,
Yes,
but
that's correct. The
Right,
enclosed ones,
okay.
yeah. You have
we were
two.
talking about unenclosed sidewalk cafes,
Okay,
and
no,
they
they
were
weren't.
seasonal.
Right.
But isn't
And-
it a case that, sorry, just to interrupt you a little bit, Leroy, isn't it a case that here, these will never be enclosed? Like, there's no guidelines here around enclosed sidewalk cafes?
Well, there are some sidewalk cafes that are already enclosed. So those are probably they were probably going to be grandfathered in. So but we're talking basically about ones that are not enclosed.
Yeah,
So
Larry's
moving
asking-
forward,
And winter, I mean, snow, someone's gonna have to remove.
No, the enclosed one, Larry's, are affixed to the building.
Yes.
Those are gonna be grandfathered in.
Yes.
During the winter months, there will be no roadway, no longer will there be roadway enclosed. They would have to be removed in November and not return till April.
I mean, it's not talking about a snowstorm in November, but you know, the same.
Right.
Yeah, a snow load, we just destroy these.
Right.
And
Yeah.
my third question is, when we did approvals for sidewalk cafes, we were able to negotiate the hours. And I believe midnight for the roadway cafes, which are really unenclosed cafes now, that midnight during the week and 1 a.m. on Saturday and on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, I didn't write it down, are much too late in a residential community.
I'm again, Doris, I'm gonna put my community board hat on. I tend to agree with you, and I think in your recommendations, that's something that should be added. You put the stipulations in with your approval. And I think that no, I don't think I know DOT will take that in consideration.
thank you, Leroy.
For instance,
Doris,
when we do liquor licenses, basically a liquor license goes for 4 a.m. But when we send it into the liquor
Right.
authority, we always say up until, and then we get agreement from the owner when they present
Right.
to us. So I think it'd be the same thing.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we should, within our recommendations to DOT for this, that it should be clarified whether community board can provide that kind of comment back. Doris, did you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Chris, you had your hand raised again. Anything from the room?
I have one question. It has to do with maintenance. It's easy. I read this and it's easy to set all the rules, but I'm more concerned with the maintenance level. We had the big problem with the rats. A lot of times I would see these outdoor sheds would become parking lots for their scooters and bikes. And I just want to know a little bit more about how they're gonna do like enforcement. I know they said they're gonna have requirements, like more barriers to keep the rodents out, but mine is more having to do with maintenance. Because one thing you said was that if they're not using it for 30 days to take it down, who's responsible for calling that in? Is it the neighbors or the
Yeah, well,
their
Yeah,
competition?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say the neighbors are eyes and ears out there, the community board, the electeds. As we all know, especially from the temporary program, from the emergency program, we can see when a particular owner is not maintaining their property or maintaining their structures. So once we get those calls, we will. The good thing about us is that we have a whole HICWA department, because this is going to fall under HICWA, just so you know, Josephine, in terms of inspection. So when Josephine sends something to me, and let's just take construction, for instance, or a hole in the street, I will call HICWA, and HICWA generally goes out there the same day I give it to them. So Josephine, when it comes to things of that nature, we definitely will be able to go out there and inspect more so on a regular basis. Now, when it comes to rodents, we're back to the Department of Health. We will go out and see if there's something that we see the owner is not doing in terms of cleanliness. But rodents will fall into the Department of Health, who will give them a violation possibly for the rodents. I don't think we will give a rodent violation so much as a violation for not maintaining.
So for the general public, how can we make them aware who to call if they see something?
well, I think the
Well,
board,
and you call 311, you call a community
311.
board, you call elected official. I mean, but 311 is the one that the general public generally uses, and you should be able to. Cause you could do that now. You could have done that now, but that will be the mechanism by which the general public will let us know what's going on at a particular location.
Can I just ask one more question?
Um,
Have you seen an increase or decrease in some of these roadway cafes?
When you say increase or decrease, you mean new ones?
New ones or other ones taking them down?
It's been a decrease, and there's no increase because we're not issuing any more permits.
Okay. All right.
I can tell you locally, we've had a decrease.
Everybody has, because we've been taking them down. We've been very active in getting rid of them at this point.
Yeah.
So
Jack, there's a question from Larry Stelter.
Larry?
About this disassembling, many times I've seen abandoned the partial disassembly, even just abandoned sidewalk cafes, and it's they can go in to see, and sometimes, as I said, it becomes a parking lot with all the scooters and bicycles. But sometimes you'll see a derelict. Is there a way of making sure they have this removed, or?
Yeah, derelict location, Larry, you can give to me. We have submitted, as Leroy could tell you, we've submitted several derelict locations that have been removed by DOT.
right.
Or sanitation. I don't know. Is it DOT is removing it now? Or sanitation?
Well, it was when you were giving them to me, Josephine, it was a combination. But
Right.
now it's only DOT. So it takes us a lot longer to remove them than it was when we had sanitation working with us. But we are removing them.
And you dispose of them, or is that what happens?
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
we have to technically, by law, we have to store them for, and I forgot how long, 30 days or something. We have to store them for a certain amount of days, and then we destroy them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the floor? If not, I had a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I
you were
just had a comment. I mean, the rule takes effect November 1st, 2024, right? So that essentially triggers, notice to those commercial entities that if they're not in compliance, they're gonna like lose those roadway structures that are not in compliance anyway, right?
Well, everybody has to remove it. we're not going to allow them to
That's
keep
how,
them,
that's how I was
people-
reading that. That's how I
right,
was
keep
reading that.
them and then apply for it.
Yep.
Everybody has to remove them, and then they can apply.
They need a clean slate, that's what.
Yes.
Clean
I
slate.
just had a
plan.
question about the timeline. So there's a session 10 a.m. on November 20th, right? For further comments, I think that's a Zoom meeting there. What's the timeline after that for DOT to actually have more specific rules after hearing public feedback and the timelines around that?
There's no, at this present time, there's no timeline on that.
And then I had another question around back to the sidewalk cafe.
Well, let me clarify that. There has to be a timeline by November 1st, 2024. So, you know, I right now there's nothing before that. So it definitely has to be done before November 1st, 2024.
So mostly it was just trying to get at if there are like further opportunities for feedback and future
Yes,
revisions of the
there will be further. The difference is it should, if you want further comment, that should go to the community board, and then Josephine, in your case, would email me, and then I would send that off to the sidewalk, to the unit that handles this.
So I had a question around the sidewalk cafe, the unenclosed one again. So it seems like there will be grandfathered in sidewalk cafes. Do those need to be in the specifically enclosed one? Do those need to be tear down as well?
No,
No.
no.
And
Those,
then
yeah, because those have been there for years, and they're fixed. They're part of the building, so they're not going to be torn down.
And then in the case of moving forward, like why does DOT not allow them moving forward on a new sidewalk cafe? So let's say there's a new restaurant moving in that doesn't have an enclosed sidewalk cafe right now, and they can't apply for an enclosed sidewalk cafe in the future.
Well,
either.
let me say it this way. If the property, say for instance, the property is set back, most sidewalk cafes, generally the property, the facade of the building is set back from what it normally would be. So adding the enclosed sidewalk would just put it in line with the facade of the building. Some of them stick out a little bit more, but most of them are in line with the facade of the building. Now, I'm not 100% sure that if somebody builds a building and it gets added to the building as a built on, I'm not surprised if that may go through as a sidewalk cafe. So I will have to get clarification on that. But as of right now, they're not looking to establish any new ones.
Right, and the enclosed sidewalk cafes went through a different process from
Yes.
Department of Consumer Affairs. They went through city planning, and it was really more of a building, change than a sidewalk cafe. I always thought, because it was an actual physical enclosure that also required Department of Building permits.
Right.
And that process will not exist anymore.
Right now, it doesn't.
Right.
But you never know what may happen in the future.
Understood. All right, Doris, you have your hand up.
Yes, in the previous unenclosed sidewalk cafe regulations, there was a required open space required between the sidewalk cafe and enough space for people to walk. There was a defined amount of space. Does that still exist?
Yes, it does.
That regulation is still there?
Isn't it 8 feet?
8 feet.
It's 8 feet.
Okay, that has not
Yeah.
changed.
That has not changed.
Okay.
The basic requirements for the unenclosed sidewalk cafes are basically the same. I think what changed the most, Josephine, correct me if I'm wrong, is the price.
The price significantly less.
Yes, because
Yeah.
businesses were paying, up to $10,000 to $15,000 to have their sidewalk cafe, and now it's only going to be $1,050 plus the square footage price.
Now, Leroy, I think I read this, but it was really a thick, is the area is limited to just the perimeter of the business, right? I think I read.
Yes, it will not, whereas before you were allowed to utilize your neighbor's space, That's not gonna be done any longer. It only the facade of your property, and if your property say 100 feet, it doesn't matter. You only could do it, if I'm not mistaken, it's 40 feet.
40 feet's the max,
40
yes.
feet, right? 40 feet's the max. And I think if you have a corner property, I believe you can do it on both sides.
Right, but no more than 40 feet.
Right.
Is it 40 feet in total or be each side?
I would
max.
assume it'd be each side. And if you have an unenclosed sidewalk cafe, you could also have a in-street structure as well.
Right,
So you can have 2 permits.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Justin, do we have anyone from the public that might have a question? How do we check for that?
We do have some attendees in the meeting. If there is a question that you would like to ask, you could just use your hand raise function on this topic and we will call upon you. I don't see any hands raised, Jeff, so I'll turn it back to you.
All right. So I think excuse me, the next stage here is to gather comments from the community board here around comments that we can provide back to DOT. Obviously, we've had a lot of questions to Leroy and Co. Currently, but we will need to have a formalized written document, and then we will be discussing it at the following community board meeting, general meeting later this month, presented back to the board and get that approval, and then we'll send it off to DOT. So with that,
Well, can I just ask Jack?
Mhm.
I really only have 2 questions that I need to get answered. The 40 and 50 days in terms of why the difference, and is the negotiation of the hours on the sidewalk cafe still a part of the process? Is there any other question that I didn't answer tonight that I need to get more clarification on?
Why are the sidewalk cafes allowed to be year-round and the roadways seasonal? Because the sidewalk cafes in the past were seasonal. Why is that change?
I guess that's the question, yeah, right? What was the thinking? To have the sidewalk cafes.
Okie dokie. That's 3.
And then just clarification too, I'm sorry, on
Yeah.
the corner properties.
In terms of what?
Is it
Footage.
The footage?
Oh,
is it
the 40
feet in
feet.
Total,
The 40
or is it
feet.
each
Right.
side?
Gotcha. Okay, got all 4. And if you think of any other ones, just send me an email.
Yeah, and then I guess the next question for the committee would be, do we want to submit formal testimony to the Department of Transportation in response to the rule change notification?
Open that up to the board.
I would say those questions should be part of our testimony.
Okay, well, I think Leroy, you think will you be able to get back to us within a week or so before?
Yeah,
the
I
next-
should be able to get back to you next week. As soon as tomorrow, Friday, I'm actually not in tomorrow. So Monday, I will
Okay.
send it off to the people who made the rules. And then they can give me clarification and I'll send that right out to you. I don't see any reason why these questions couldn't be answered quickly. And by the way, that's how they want to do it now, because they didn't want to come make presentations at the community board. So,
Right,
so they
We
should be able
appreciate
to
it.
answer quickly.
yeah. I mean, we could certainly, voice the one concern is that we would appreciate the ability as a community board to provide feedback and stipulations on the hours of operation, which is very important that was mentioned here tonight.
I truly believe that they're going to say, yes, you can, in your recommendation, recommend the hours of operation. Because, as anything, the same thing with the liquor license, we always recommend, but
Right.
they don't have to agree to it. But I think again, put my community board hat on, I think when the business owner comes to make their presentation, I think we should just make a stipulation. As a
Yeah.
community board, should make a stipulation with the owner that, these are the hours that we recommend your approval on.
And I have to say, as district manager, I know that the board put a lot into their recommendations during the emergency period and during the discussion about the formalizing the rules.
Mhm.
And, I'm happy to see that there was community board role review as part of the,
Yes.
rules that are here tonight. So,
I think the community boards were heard, and the electeds took that to heart and said that should be a part of the rules and regulations. And then you had, people even in DOT who felt that was a necessity.
that's great.
That worked
So,
for DOT.
the committee could formally just be documented and submit that as, one of its comments. And then we'll get the answers from Leroy and Jack, we could add that to your report.
Right.
Great.
But if we
Any-
record that, because we don't have a quorum in person, someone would still have to make a motion, we could vote on it, and we would need a second at the.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, any other questions, comments around these rules for Leroy?
No, I appreciate that they were so clearly written out. I kind of dreaded when I saw 27 pages, but I was able to get through it, and then you really finalized a lot of my questions you answered in your PowerPoint, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
The reason
Yeah,
I laughed is that the zoning committee
Mhm.
is working on a 664-page proposal.
Oh my gosh.
So 27 pages is.
It's a pizza cake.
Yeah.
I'm being a crybaby. Sorry.
All right,
Josephine, at the general meeting, will your PowerPoint presentation be available for community board members? Be
yes,
printed?
and what, I'm gonna send it out to them in advance.
That'd be great.
Because you never know
Fine.
what the technical, issues at the board meeting, but I will send the PowerPoint in advance. We just completed it today, so I reviewed it today. We had put it together and took the most important parts of that 27-page document. So, okay, great.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
if there were any attendees, I just want to stay on the meeting and not aware that the first item on the agenda has been postponed, the Fifth Avenue Bridge, to next month. We're going to pick a date and have that emailed out.
All right.
Okay.
I think we're good to close out this meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second,
Very-
thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Leroy. Have a
No
good
problem. Take care. Take care,
night.
Doris.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.